You think betrayal kills a man? No, betrayal keeps him alive, long enough to feel every inch of the pain. Before I tell you what happened to me, I want you to do one thing. Hit that subscribe button, because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about what happens when love turns into fire, and then melts into something sweeter, sugar. My name is John Marcus, 72 years old, an African-American man whose hands still smell of sawdust and old paint. For 45 years I built houses, strong ones. I made homes for families, smiles for strangers, dreams for people who didn't even know my name. I built for others, but I never built one for myself. Maybe that's where I went wrong. My wife Clara used to tell me, "John, one day you'll build something you can rest in." But cancer took her before we could finish that dream. I buried her with my hands, not just in the ground, but deep inside my heart. The only reason I kept breathing after that was my boy, Ethan. Ethan was my pride. I raised him alone, taught him how to hammer a nail, how to stand straight, how to love right. He was the kind of boy who'd hug me so tight I'd forget the world was cruel. When he grew up, he was tall, sharp, confident. The kind of man who could light up a room. And eventually, he lit up one woman's world. Her name was Sabrina. She was beautiful. Too beautiful for a small-town man like my son. Smooth skin, red lipstick, and eyes that always looked at me like I was furniture. When Ethan brought her home and said, "Dad, this is the woman I'm going to marry," I smiled. I said, "If she makes you happy, then she's family." The wedding was small, simple. I sat there wearing my old brown suit, watching my son say vows I once said to his mother. I thought life was finally giving me peace. But peace is a guest that never stays long. A few years later, Ethan came home excited, full of plans. "Dad, we found a house." Big one, new one, our dream place. His voice trembled like a boy again. "But we're short on the down payment." I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask questions. I sold my old truck, the one Clara gave me on our anniversary. I withdrew my retirement money, $180,000, my life savings. I pressed that envelope into his hand and said, "Build it. Make it yours." That's what fathers do. He hugged me tight. "You'll live with us, Dad, your own room, your own porch. You'll never be alone again." Those words, "You'll never be alone," though they felt warm then. I didn't know they'd freeze me years later. When we moved into that house, it smelled of new paint and promise. I helped them carry boxes, built a porch swing myself, even planted Clara's favorite flowers by the gate. Lilies. Every night I'd sit there feeling like maybe God finally gave me rest. But little by little, I started to notice things. My picture disappeared from the living room wall. My old Bible vanished from the table. Sabrina started using words like privacy and space one evening. I heard them in the kitchen, Sabrina's voice, sharp, cold. "Ethan, this isn't working. Your father's everywhere. We have no life of our own." Ethan said nothing. Silence can break more than words ever can. That night she came to me herself. "Mr. Marcus," she said, "not Dad, not Father. We think it's time you found a place of your own, maybe closer to your church friends." I looked at her, then at my son standing behind her like a shadow. "My place of my own?" I said softly. "Child, I paid for this roof." She smiled, small and cruel. "And we thank you for that." My son didn't meet my eyes. That silence, it killed me more than her words, so I packed. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I took my wife's photo, my Bible, 2 shirts, and my walking cane. As I left, rain started pouring like God himself was crying for me. I stood at the edge of that porch, the same porch I built, and I whispered, "Clara, I did everything right. So why does it hurt this bad?" I walked out into the storm. I rented a small room downtown. Cracked walls, broken fan, one single window. Every night I'd stare out and whisper to the dark, "You gave your son everything, and still, he chose the world over you." Then one night, something changed. I was sorting through old papers, bills, letters, memories, when I saw it. A document yellowed at the edges. The property deed, my name. John Marcus, not Ethan's, not Sabrina's, mine. I froze. My heart beat faster than it had in years. "So you threw me out of my own house, boy?" I whispered. The next morning I went to see my old friend Carlton, a lawyer I'd known since my working days. He looked at the document, adjusted his glasses, and smiled. "John, this house is legally yours. You could take it back tomorrow." I said, "No, I won't shout. I won't fight. I'll do it my way." Carlton smiled wider. The Sugar Way? I nodded. The Sugar Way, so we filed the claim. Quietly, no warnings. No drama, just paperwork. 2 weeks later, Ethan called me, panicked. Dad, we got a letter from the court. What's going on? I said calmly. You just forgot whose name is on that house, son. I could hear Sabrina in the background yelling, I told you to transfer it. I told you. That house, that dream, it turned into a nightmare for them. The court ruled in my favor. The land, the house, everything, mine again. When I walked back into that house, Sabrina froze. Ethan stood behind her, speechless. I said softly, Relax. I'm not here to throw you out. I'm here to remind you who built this home. And that's when my real revenge began. When I stepped inside that house again, the air felt heavier. Not because of the rain, but because of guilt. Ethan stood there, eyes wide, lips trembling. He tried to say something, but words died on his tongue. Sabrina just folded her arms and looked away. I didn't shout. I didn't say, I told you so. That would have been too easy. I simply walked to the porch. The one I built with my own hands, sat down on the swing, and started rocking. Slow. Calm. Ethan followed me, voice small like a child again. Dad, no, we didn't mean for it to go this far. I looked straight ahead. Didn't mean to throw me out or didn't mean to get caught? He had no answer. Just silence. Sabrina spoke instead, cold and sharp. We were under pressure. You were always in the way. I turned my head toward her. The way of what? Love or greed? She rolled her eyes, but I could see her hands shaking. Over the next few days, I stayed in that house, quietly. No drama, no shouting. I made breakfast at 5 a.m., cleaned the porch, fed the birds. Every corner that once rejected me, I reclaimed with peace. The smell of old wood and coffee started to replace the perfume of lies. Sabrina couldn't stand it. She'd slam doors, break plates, whisper things about old men and nursing homes. But the more noise she made, the calmer I became. Because revenge doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it comes with patience. I started cooking dinner every night. Slow-cooked ribs, honey cornbread, and sweet tea. The smell filled the house. Memories of family dinners long gone. Ethan would sneak into the kitchen when she wasn't looking, grab a plate and sit next to me. We didn't talk much. Just ate in silence. That silence started to change him. One night he broke it. Dad, I miss Mom. I looked up from my plate. She'd be ashamed of what we've become. He nodded slowly, tears forming. I know, but Sabrina, and she was different. Her guilt turned into anger. She started spending nights out, coming home late, avoiding eye contact. Ethan pretended not to notice, but a father sees everything. Then came the day that sealed everything. It was a Sunday morning. The sun was shining, birds singing, the kind of day that mocks broken hearts. I found an envelope on the kitchen counter. My name on it written in Sabrina's sharp handwriting. Inside and a note. John, I can't live like this anymore. I'm leaving. Don't look for me. No tears. No goodbye. Just absence. Ethan sat on the porch that evening, staring into nothing. I sat beside him, placed my hand on his shoulder. He whispered, She left me, Dad. She took everything and money. Jewelry, the car, I said softly. Then maybe she gave you the only thing you really needed. He looked up, confused. I smiled. Freedom. For weeks, Ethan barely spoke. He started going to work early, coming home late, and for the first time in years, he sat with me at dinner. Really sat. Like a son again. We began fixing the house together. Repainting walls. Repairing fences. Restoring what was broken, not just wood, but blood. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned orange, Ethan looked at me and said, Dad, I don't deserve your forgiveness, I said quietly. You don't? But forgiveness ain't something you earn, son. It's something I give so I can sleep at night. He started crying. The same man who once threw me out was now holding my hand like a lost child. And in that moment I realized something. Revenge wasn't about taking back the house. It was about showing him what real love looks like after betrayal. But life has its own plans. 3 months later, I got a call. Sabrina was back. Only this time, not with love, not even with regret, but with a lawyer. She wanted half the house. Community property, her lawyer said. She was married to Ethan, so she has rights. I almost laughed. Rights? I said. To what? The house she abandoned. The home she never built. But Sabrina was clever. She knew the law better than she knew love. She started dragging Ethan to court, draining him, exhausting him. My son, my once proud boy, looked smaller every day. And that's when I decided. This time the revenge wouldn't just be sugar. It would be honey, slow, golden, and unforgettable. The courthouse smelled like dust and lost dreams. I sat there on the wooden bench, hat in my hands, watching Sabrina walk in, dressed sharp, heels clicking like gunfire. Ethan sat beside me, silent, eyes red from sleepless nights. She didn't look at him, didn't look at me. She just smirked when the judge entered. Her lawyer stood tall. Your Honor, my client contributed to the maintenance and improvement of the property during her marriage. She's entitled to half. I let him finish. Then I stood up slowly. My cane tapped the floor like a clock counting down. Your Honor, I said, if maintaining this home means spending my money, my hands, and my heart.
Then yes, she contributed nothing. I showed every receipt.
Every construction permit, every photograph, and all in my name. The judge leaned forward. Studying the papers, this house, he said, legally belongs to Mr. John Marcus. Bang of the gavel. Case closed. Sabrina's face lost color. She stormed out, muttering curses that bounced off the marble walls. Ethan stayed seated, breathing out like a man freed from a nightmare. Outside the court, rain had started again, soft, like forgiveness. Ethan looked at me and whispered, Dad, how did you stay calm through all this? I smiled, because anger burns fast, son. But sugar? Sugar melts slow. After that, she vanished again. For a while, peace returned. The house was quiet, warm, alive again. I planted new flowers outside, replaced the broken porch light, and painted Clara's name on a wooden plaque near the door. Home is built with love, not pride, but revenge. Has a strange way of finishing its meal late. One evening, a letter came in the mail from the city property department. Apparently, Sabrina had filed a claim stating the house's taxes hadn't been paid for 2 years during the time I was gone. Technically, she wasn't wrong. Ethan was supposed to pay them, but grief, guilt, and chaos had made him forget. If I didn't clear the dues in 30 days, they'd seize the property. Ethan broke down. Dad, I'll sell my car, my tools, and anything. I stopped him. No, this time I'll handle it. The next morning I walked down to the local bank, the same one where I'd withdrawn my life savings years ago. The manager, an old friend named Harris, saw me and smiled. John Marcus, haven't seen you in years. What can I do for you? I leaned in. You remember the property fund I had here? He nodded. The one you closed when you gave your son the money? Yeah, I said. Reopen it. This time, make it bigger. I took out a small loan. Not much, just enough to cover taxes and start a small business again. I'd been building homes all my life. Maybe it was time to build one more thing, my legacy. Ethan joined me. We started Marcus Repairs and home restoration and painting. Word spread fast in the neighborhood. People trusted the old man who still worked with his own hands, and when they saw me and my son working side by side, they said that's what forgiveness looks like. Business grew, slowly, sweetly. But then one afternoon, as I was painting a porch, a black SUV pulled up. The door opened and out stepped Sabrina. She looked tired, thinner, but those same sharp eyes were there. Nice business you got, John. I wiped my hands on my apron. You came to buy something? She smirked. No, I came to warn you. You embarrassed me in court. You made me lose everything. I'm not done yet, I smiled softly. Sabrina, you already lost everything. You just don't know it yet. She scoffed and left. But I knew what that meant. She'd try again. So I made my move first. A month later, I hosted a community dinner. Invited everyone, neighbors, clients, church friends, even the city officials who'd handled my property case. It was a warm evening, lights twinkling, kids playing, jazz music in the background. I stood up with my cane and said, this home was once built with money. Tonight it stands because of faith. Everyone clapped. Cameras flashed. I could see Sabrina standing near the street watching, angry, defeated. Then I announced something no one saw coming. I'm transferring ownership of this house and the new business. To my son, Ethan Marcus, the crowd cheered. Ethan looked stunned, tears in his eyes. Dad, why? I said softly. Because what I built with pain, I want you to rebuild with love. You lost yourself once. Don't lose again. Sabrina froze. The legal documents I'd filed meant she couldn't touch the property anymore. The house, the business, the legacy, and all secure, clean, untouchable. That was the night my sugar revenge turned golden, but it didn't end there. Because life always asks for one final act.
Time moves strange when you're old. Some days crawl, others fly. But every morning, I woke up before sunrise, made my coffee, and watched the sun paint the sky over the lilies Clara once loved. The porch creaked under my rocking chair, and the smell of fresh paint hung in the air, the smell of new beginnings. Ethan worked harder than ever. He'd wake up early, load his truck, and call me before every job. Sometimes I'd tease him. "You're finally turning into me, boy," he'd laugh. Took me long enough, didn't it? Those were good days. Quiet, warm, honest. Until one evening, I saw something that twisted my stomach. I was closing the shop when I saw Sabrina again, standing by Ethan's truck, talking to him. Her tone was soft, desperate. Ethan didn't say much, but I could tell by the way he stood, rigid, arms crossed, that he was fighting old ghosts. When he came home later, he didn't say anything, just sat down, head low. I poured him some coffee. "She wants something." He nodded slowly. "She says she's changed. She wants to talk." I looked at him for a long moment. "Son, poison doesn't change just because it's in a prettier bottle." He nodded, but I could see confusion in his eyes. Love, even broken, still knows how to whisper. Days passed. He met her once, maybe twice. Then one night, he came home late, eyes red. "Dad, she's in trouble," he said. "She owes people money. Bad people." I didn't say a word. I just looked at him. He continued, "I want to help her." I took a deep breath, leaned back in my chair and said, "Son, do what your heart says, but remember, every time you save someone drowning, make sure they don't pull you down too." He nodded. And he did help her, quietly, sold some tools, lent her a little money, and then she disappeared again. No call, no thank you, nothing. 2 months later, a letter arrived addressed to Ethan. Inside was a legal notice. Debt collectors claiming his name was on her paperwork. She had used him again, and this time, it broke him. He sat in his room for hours, holding that letter. I could hear his sobs through the thin walls. That sound. It was the same sound I once made, walking away from the home I built. The next morning, I made breakfast for him, placed the plate by his door, and said quietly, "Son, you can lose money, you can lose a home, but don't ever lose the man your mother raised." He came out, eyes swollen, and hugged me tight. "Dad, I don't know how you did it all these years, how you forgave, how you smiled." I smiled weakly. Maybe I didn't forgive. Maybe I just remembered who I was before the world made me angry. That day, something inside him changed. He went to work early, stayed late, started rebuilding himself piece by piece. The debt, he faced it, paid it off. No shortcuts this time. No begging, just grit. And me? I started feeling slower. My hands shook when I lifted my coffee. My breathing got shorter. I'd hide it from him, but the mirror never lied. Old age had been patient. Now it was catching up. One night, I sat on the porch with my Bible. My hands trembled as I flipped to the verse Clara once read before bed. "Let not your heart be troubled." I whispered, "Lord, I've seen betrayal. I've seen greed, but I've also seen grace. Don't let me leave before my boy truly finds peace." The next morning, Ethan came out with 2 tickets in his hand. "Dad, we're going to the lake house, the one you and Mom used to visit. Just for a weekend. You need air," I smiled. "You just want me to fish so you can laugh when I fall asleep." He grinned. Maybe. We went, just the 2 of us. The lake shimmered in the evening sun, the same place where I once promised Clara I'd build a future for our family. Ethan sat beside me on the dock, our fishing rods still, water quiet. After a long silence, he said softly, "Dad, I'm sorry for everything, for the day I threw you out, for not being the man you deserved." I didn't answer. I just looked at the water, the reflection of the sunset painting gold over everything broken. Finally, I said, "Son, when a father gives, he doesn't count. But when a son takes, he should remember." He started crying. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "You've remembered, Ethan. That's enough." We sat there till the stars came out, 2 silhouettes against the water, tied by pain, healed by time. When we got home that night, I felt something inside me ease, like a story reaching its last page. But I didn't know the next morning would be my last sunrise. The morning came soft and golden. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, painting stripes across the floor. Birds were already singing outside, fluttering through the lilies Clara once planted. I woke before Ethan, like always. My body ached, but it was a familiar pain, the kind that tells you it's time to rest soon. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat on the porch, and felt the wood beneath my feet. The same wood I laid with my own hands years ago. I looked out at the street, at the trees, at the life I'd built piece by piece, and I whispered, "Clara, it's almost time." Ethan came out soon after, rubbing his eyes. "You're up early again," I smiled. "Old habits don't die. Only old men do," he laughed softly. "Don't say that." I reached out and held his hand. "Promise me something, son." "Anything," he said. "Promise me you'll keep this house full of laughter, full of faith, full of family. Don't ever let it turn cold again." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I promised, Dad," I smiled. That was all I needed. Later that day, he left for work. I stayed on the porch, the sun warm on my skin. I looked at the lilies, bright, alive, and I felt something lift inside me, like a burden being carried away. I went inside, sat at my old desk, and wrote a note. One last thing. My handwriting was shaky, but the words were clear. "Son, you once threw me out of this house, and I walked away without hate. Because hate is heavy, and I wanted you to learn how light love feels when it finally returns. This home is yours, but remember, homes aren't built with money. They're built with the people who forgive you when you don't deserve it. That's the real sugar of life. Love, Dad." I folded it, placed it on the table beside my Bible, and smiled. Then I lay down in my chair, looking out the window. The same window I once stared through when I had nothing. I watched the sunlight dance on the walls, and for the first time in years, I felt Clara beside me, her hand on my shoulder, her whisper soft and sweet. "You did it, John. You brought him home." And with that, I closed my eyes. Hours later, Ethan came home. He called out, "Dad?" No answer. He found me there, still peaceful, a faint smile on my face, the letter beside me. He read it once, twice, and then he cried. Not the cry of guilt, but of love rediscovered. He buried me next to Clara, under the old oak tree by the lake, the same place where I had once promised her a home filled with family. Years passed. The house stayed in the family. Ethan married again, a gentlewoman who loved the lilies like Clara did. He named their first son John, and every evening, that boy would sit on the porch swing beside his father, watching the sunset, listening to stories about the man who built everything with his hands and rebuilt everything with his heart. People in town still tell my story. They say he didn't take revenge with anger. He took it with sugar. And when they walk past my old house, they see the sign carved into the wood near the porch. This home was built twice, once with wood and once with forgiveness. So if you're still watching, if you've made it to this part of my story, remember this. Don't let hate be the last thing you give to someone who hurt you, because the sweetest revenge is showing them that love, no matter how broken, can still win in the end. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe, because the next story I tell might just be yours.